Hello, my name is Cheryl, and we're going to be talking about adverse childhood experiences this week. And this is your behavior tip of the week. So, you may have heard about ACEs. What are they? Let's find out. So, they're the adverse childhood experiences. Not the happiest topic, but a very important one. So it all started with a study. It started in San Diego. You can see some of the action points here. It was very interesting. It all started at this weight loss clinic, and they were trying to find out the outcomes and why people could lose the weight but not necessarily keep it off. And they came up with this questionnaire, and the questionnaire focused on health history and experiences growing up. Just to be clear, 0 to 18. That's what they mean by growing up, although we all know that sometimes we grow up after 18, but this is what the questionnaire focused on. At the time, they focused on kind of a small sample size, largely middle class and college educated folks. However, that study has grown and grown and multiplied across many folks, many types of people. And we have found that these adverse childhood experiences, kind of fit no matter what. High school education, no education, college plus education. And here they are for you at the bottom under the lime green line. So anything that occurred having to do with physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, intimate partner violence, the mother being treated violently. So if the child from 0 to 18 saw that, that's also an adverse childhood experience. Substance misuse within the household mental illness. I want to be clear, this is not just somebody having it per se, although that could be an adverse childhood experience, but also how the young person was like supportive. Were they taking care of the other children, maybe falling under a caregiving youth category, and one that we see often, parental separation, divorce, or incarceration. So those are basically the adverse childhood experiences with a little bit of the history about how the questionnaire came about mixed in. So, what were these results of this study, right? So, they realized right away that 2 out of every 3 respondents had at least had one ACE. So, they at least had one adverse childhood experience. Now, from those, 21% had some kind of sexual abuse, 19% household member with mental illness. These are pretty high numbers. 28% identified some kind of physical abuse, So let's think about it. From conception to death, there's the bottom of that pyramid, right? Adverse childhood experiences. There's some gaps that could appear, maybe cognitive, emotional, or social impairments. You might start to see some adoption of health risk type behaviors or riskier behaviors. Then you may have that disease, disability, and social problems, which could potentially lead to early death. So, kind of a bummer, we know. However, just because we know that the higher the ACE score, the higher rate, the risk factors per se, we also know that protective factors can be huge and really impact. So let's think about that. Just because we understand that correlation doesn't mean that we can't make a difference. So a protective factor, like having one adult that you trust, having somebody you can talk to, somebody following up, structured routines, all of that actually helps to decrease those not so great outcomes, which I'll list for you real quick. I know you have it on the slide, but if you have 4 ACEs, you may have twice the risk of cancer or potentially heart disease. 5, 8 times the risk of maybe indulging and becoming an alcoholic. 6 or more ACEs could mean 20 years lower life expectancy. So these don't look great. However, just know that just because we know this information doesn't mean we can't impact it. Because we know this information, we know that we can make a difference. So here are some more. This is just a visual representation of the ACEs. We know some people like the word, some people like a visual. So we just have it here for you in a different way. But they kind of fall into 3 categories that I think are important for us to think about based on what I've already mentioned: abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction. So anything that occurs from 0 to 18 can have pretty significant impacts. This is another really important concept, which is the pair of aces. So if you look at the top of the tree, we have those aces that I've already mentioned to you as those adverse childhood experiences. However, there's also the roots of it. So something we have to understand in order to work in education. I hope everybody's nodding right now, right? Adverse community environments are the second ace, right? So this is things like poverty, discrimination. So, although poverty in itself is not traumatic, it's still important to understand how it could impact, right? Community disruptions, lack of opportunity or mobility, right? Economic opportunities, I'll say it that way, the quality of housing and or affordability, and last and definitely not least, the violence, especially as that is a direct correlation to those adverse childhood experiences. So you have the pair of ACEs. So the adverse childhood experiences paired with that adverse community environment that can really make an important distinction for us as we're supporting students. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening and learning more about ACEs. Just know that no matter what, we can make a difference. I appreciate it. Hope you join us again soon.